Welcome back, Mary.
Thank you.
I am so excited to talk to you about this topic, the ketogenic diet and autoimmune disorders. Can you first tell our listeners what is the ketogenic diet?
Yes, the ketogenic diet is all about ratios. So it's a very high fat diet, low protein, extremely low carbohydrate diet. It's often confused with Atkins, but it's really not Atkins. You don't do a lot of protein. So on a plate, what this would look like is about 2 ounces of meat or fish or another protein, about 4 tablespoons of fat, and about 1 cup of green vegetables 3 times a day. That equates to about 80% fat, 15% protein, and 5% carbohydrates.
Wow, is this something that's been around for a while?
Yeah, it's an ancient diet followed by many civilizations for thousands of years that we know of. It's generationally followed, and now it's been studied. It's honestly the most well-studied diet. So it's one of the safest. It is one that you want to do with a practitioner of some sort, at least in the beginning, because many people who are doing it on their own don't do it correctly, so they think they're in ketosis when they're not. And because this is a medical state of being, you do want to know what you're doing for sure to get to reap the benefit. But like I said, it's the most well-studied diet. It's been studied for all sorts of things since the early 1900s. And it's one of the only diets that's been followed from infancy to elderly years, and again, generationally.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, is there a right way of doing this and a wrong way of doing this?
Yes, I would say the wrong way of doing it is the way that it's traditionally done in studies, to be honest. And for the last several decades, they don't use an ancestral standpoint, they really just use the ratios. So as long as you have 80% fat, you're fine. That can be from canola or cottonseed oil. And that's very unhealthy. That's very unhealthy. So I like to have people use an ancestral or a whole food version of the ketogenic diet. I like to get their fat ratios from traditional fats like tallow and ghee and duck fat and lard rather than things like cottonseed oil and canola.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I've heard about the ketogenic diet in regards to cancer and epilepsy for sure, but I haven't heard much about it from autoimmune disease. Can you tell me what your experience is with autoimmune?
I've had wonderful experiences with it. You know, I reversed my own autoimmune conditions with it, and many of my clients. All the fat, you know, that cholesterol, like we talked about in another video, is so nurturing for the nervous system and the immune system. It really feeds the immune system. In fact, before antibiotics, if someone had tuberculosis, doctors would give them a cup of raw cream with some egg yolk because they knew that cholesterol improved the immune function. We now know from studies that it improves immune function by 80% when someone is given that concoction. So you can imagine how well the immune system would function on a diet solely of these foods.
Wow, that is absolutely remarkable to learn, and I think it's going to blow some people's minds. And one thing that I think might come up for people is a little bit of fear about going into ketosis and eating 80% fat and feeling like, what about my fruits and vegetables? I'm used to getting phytonutrients, and what would you say to those people?
One thing you have to remember is that people didn't have as much access to fruits and vegetables all year as we do now. And where they would get their nutrients from was actually from organ meats, primarily. Things like liver and heart have more vitamins and minerals than any fruit or vegetable on earth, vitamin C in particular, potassium, and all these other things that tend to be deficient in those with autoimmune disease. Now, many people these days feel that that's weird or gross, so they won't go there. So if that's a discomfort zone for you, I would go the herbal route to get all your nutrition. So you would get your minerals and vitamins from herbs. Pine leaf tea is wonderful for getting vitamin C. The other thing you need to remember is that meat and fat actually has a lot of has a lot of vitamins in it. You have your A, you have your D, you have your zinc and your magnesium, and all of these sorts of things. So uh, you are getting a highly nutrient dense diet.
That's fabulous. I would imagine that one thing, if you're not brave enough to delve into organ meat, you might want to consider polysaccharides.
Yeah, always. Anytime you have an autoimmune disease, I would load up on all 8 polysaccharides.
Wonderful. Well, that's great information. Now tell me this, will I be hungry on a ketogenic diet?
No. And to be honest, this is why it's one of my favorite diets to teach. After the first couple days, you completely lose your hunger. So with many clients, I have to tell them to set an alarm to remind them to eat. It is still important to eat, but the beauty of this is that you won't feel as tortured on this diet as some others when you go out with friends, when you go to fairs and places where all this wonderful food is. You won't be as tempted because your hunger will be totally satiated by all the fat that you're eating.
That's fantastic. So how would I know if I'm in ketosis or not? What is the process and how do I test for it?
Sure. So transitioning into ketosis really is a kind of a three-step process. And each step has different signs and signals with the body and different ways that you can test it. The first step is what's called the keto flu. There's really no getting around this. Your body is completely switching over from using glucose for fuel to using fat for fuel. And this makes you feel like you have a very mild flu for about a week. Now, this is worse in those with autoimmune and comprised bodies and health systems, but it's not terrible. It's something you can still go to work with and things like that. Once you get past the keto flu, most people are in the first stage of ketosis, which is where you start to lose your hunger. But at this stage, you tend to be more tired and not feel quite as perky until you get to ketoadaptation, which is the last stage. And once you get to ketoadaptation, that's really where the health benefits are. So that's past the 6-week mark. If you're transitioning slowly into ketosis, it can take longer, but traditionally it's about 6 weeks you get into ketoadaptation, and that's when the body fully starts working off fat for fuel. So everything starts running very smoothly at that point. There's several ways you can test for this. In the first month, you can use urine strips. Once you've ketoadapted, you will no longer register having ketones near urine because your body will be using them as fuel. After that stage, then you can use the breath test or the blood test. And of course, you can use the breath test for ketosis and as well as the blood test earlier as well if you like.
What's the minimum amount of time I should stay on a ketogenic diet and what's the maximum I want to do this for?
The minimum would be 6 months. With most diets, you really need to give them 6 months to see the benefits. The maximum for this one is, there is no maximum. You can follow this until the last day you're on Earth.
Wow, that is absolutely remarkable. I'm sure that we have people that might want to give this a try. So if they want more information, where would you recommend they go?
Sure. So you can go many places. I always tell clients to go to the library or PubMed first because those are the most reputable sources. The only catch with the library is that several books will not have a whole food perspective, so they may have artificial sweeteners being used or other products. Just remember, just avoid those parts and take the good nuggets from the books because they're there. The other great resource, online as far as that goes, Dr. Mercola is great. He has a bunch of videos of interviews with several of the doctors in the field studying the ketogenic diet. Dr. Seafried is one of the big ones. So that's a great resource as well.
Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you again.
Me too.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you liked this, please follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Palmer Kippola and click like below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks and take good care.